officially to order. Are we taking attendance tonight?
We are. Have to do double duty, I guess, right?
Okay.
All right. I will do roll call. Phil Kane,
Here.
David Hertz,
Here.
Jake Shockley,
Here.
Carly Krebs.
Here. All right, hopefully you've had time to look over the minutes from our last meeting on July 3rd. Does anybody have any questions or comments about our minutes from our July meeting?
I do not.
And if you do not, then can I get,
I'll make a motion
thank you.
to pass the meeting minutes from July that I did not attend.
But you have read.
I have read them. I read them
Okay.
the other day. Yeah.
I will second it.
Thank you, Phil. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And now to look over the claims, which I have to admit, because I've been out of town. Does anybody have any questions? I always have questions, but does anybody else have any questions about any of the claims? The two backboards on page 1,
Is that
are those the ones that were not ordered for gains, that we had to order later?
Yes, we have one backboard in for gains, and so one complete set was missing that we ordered as new. Two, they said were shipped, we never received. They're sending those free of charge. Those will go to Crystal Beach.
Okay,
So the one new one will be gains, and the two replacement will be Crystal Beach.
okay. And then just to verify, on the page 2, the B&R construction for the Lions Park, that was money that we already had from the Stellar project a few years ago that we
Correct.
put to good use.
Correct. And there's still available funds after this. There's about 9,000 to start, so we're about 4,000 still in that fund if we need to do something down the road a little bit for something else.
Excellent.
Does it really cost $2,468 for one drinking fountain?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they're two level, stainless steel outdoor, yes,
Okay.
ridiculous, ridiculous. Even the inside indoor bottle filler 2 level, they're easily $2,000 and 6 months to get.
Wow.
Yeah, no, there's markets that we should all be investing in.
Okay.
That's all I got.
I'll make a motion.
You're making a motion to accept
we
the
need-
claims?
Yeah.
Second.
All those in favor,
Aye.
please say aye.
sorry?
Aye.
Aye.
David, thank you for your eagerness. Okay.
No,
So our claims have passed. No, I'm being serious. New business.
Before I start new business, I just wanted to invite everybody, we are having an intern pitch-in tomorrow at noon. Our interns are 11:30, are starting to wrap up this week and next week. So we're doing a pitch-in. If you're available, swing by and grab some grub and say thank you to our interns if you are so inclined and have time in your schedule.
I'd like to add to that our interns were phenomenal. They did excellent work for us this summer. We're really going to miss them. It
Good.
was nice having 2 of them.
It was great. It was great. New business, in your packets that you had on the dais when you came in, is a City of Madison Parks Board resolution of facility uses, hours of operation, and fee policies. As I've been here now for, I guess, 4 months, I've been struck by, I would say, inconsistencies in how fees and policies have been applied. Sometimes we don't have any policies, sometimes we have just done things because we've always done them that way. And so what I want to do is go through and create more of a framework of our policies, our fee structure, how we apply them, how we look at things in general. So this is a fairly lengthy document. This is as a start of a conversation. I'm not wed to any of this. I did go back and look at previous year's charges and what we've been charging. You have that in the very back of your packet. We have a list of 2023 costs. some ideas that I have. This is honestly just the start of a conversation. I'd like to have this finalized by January 1st so we can implement it for next year. So that gives us about 4 months to workshop it and work through it. And, have any questions? I'm not a lawyer, so the format is probably incorrect. I don't know how we would format that. We'd leave that up to others, and how we would section it off and move things around. So all that is part of the conversation. So I just wanted to say, okay, here's our first step in trying to formalize things that have not been formalized in general. And of course, please read through it. Any questions? And I think we just start having conversations and trying to get this to a point where it's adopted. Whatever process and channels we have to go through to have that happen, then I'd like to have that done by the end of the year. I'm sure there's some things I missed. I'm sure there's some redundancy, but it's a starting point.
Yeah, it would be nice to, obviously, once this is finalized, to have all of it easy to locate on our website for people.
Right. And I want to try and get staff out of the middle of it, because somebody will call and say, well, I got this last year, or my friend got this, how come I can't get this? And so, over years and years, different conversations have had, and we need to eliminate that and have a structure. So my staff can just say, here's what's been adopted and here's what the rules are, and please read them, and that's what we go by. And takes all the personalities and all the history out of it, and just makes it structured for the future.
And you said the current rates are in our packet too?
Very last attachment.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Ms. Tanya, we are ready for our Assistant Director reports.
Okay, for event update, we have started, we're getting ready to send out sponsorship letters for Halloween and Christmas events to do the fundraising for both of those. We did just take the first senior day trip to Streamcliff. We posted that on Facebook one day, and that day, in 2 days, we had 27 people signed up. So it was very popular and a lot quicker than I anticipated. I was thinking we might have 15, but I do know that Morgan Ney does day trips, but the cost is prohibitive for some of our seniors. We kept ours as low as possible. We had volunteer drivers that drove. RSVP drove one van, and one of their volunteer drivers drove the Boys and Girls Club van. So we were able to keep that cost low. The only cost the seniors had was just purchasing their own meals. So it was very low for them. We have one scheduled for September and October, and I've already got people signing up for those as well. So I do see that exploding and being more and more popular. They really enjoyed it. And we've got nothing but positive. You have a newsletter in there, and I just get remarks constantly about how thankful they are to have this schedule. And you will notice in there, I'll go ahead on to activities. There are a lot of new activities that we've added in the month of September. First of all, opening up the senior center 4 days a week. It's currently open 2.5. They've asked for a craft day, and that's one thing we added. There is a sheet there. We've got September programmed of 3 different crafts for them. Again, keeping cost as minimal as possible. Just different community people we've connected with, like Tom Cassidy's. He's one of the wood turners of the Southeast Indiana group that's looking for makerspace, but he's donating kits for as many sign up to build jewelry boxes at no cost and come in and teach in the class. So there are people willing to do these things and volunteer, just have to coordinate those efforts and get stuff going. So they are very excited about that. As we were getting ready for RSVP is still in communications with us about moving into the senior center. So we were going to get office space ready, and then also we're interviewing for a position over there to replace Gary, who had resigned a month ago, extended hours, so we needed office space. So we went over there to clean out the front 2 rooms that were just storage, and they were decorating the front windows to get those painted and ready to be used as offices. And the drywall was wet in one of those front rooms, just completely wet, had to be cut out. So we cut that out, and the wall behind it was exposed brick, just absolutely gorgeous. So we're like, okay,
Serendipity.
let's tear the rest of that wall off because it's beautiful. Well, there was also water damage to the floor. It looked like where plants had sat and been watered, and the carpet was ruined. The floor was sagging. They are jacking the floor up, but it was really time to get the flooring replaced anyway. That had been requested several times, and then with that damage up there and needing the office space, we decided, well, let's go ahead and get the flooring replaced. Well, as we started getting into the wall, there was just more and more that was damaged and needed updated. So it's going to look drastically different when we're done. In-house, we've torn out 2 walls in that and just opened that space all up. There was a room. The front office had a closet between it and the big room. So those walls are gone. And that space is just completely open. We did it all in-house and didn't have to pay a contractor to come in and do that. And the seniors already have the funds within their budget to replace the flooring. So it's completely open, going to have fresh paint and new flooring and look like a completely different place. And
Good for them.
Good.
we have not had to close whatsoever. The front and back are just 2 separate spaces almost pretty much. So we've just plasticed off the doorway, and they've been having all their activities in the back and continued as normal. The ones that are over there already and are peeking through are just ecstatic. I mean, they're thrilled to have some attention on that space that was in desperate need of it. So,
I bet.
Excellent.
any questions on that? Scott's been over there several times, and
Yeah, no, my only question was gonna be like the costs of doing what you're talking about. but you
the
covered that.
flooring was 4,100, and
No, but
again,
you said they had in the budget. I was like, where are we gonna come up with the
Yeah.
money? But
no,
we
they have
it.
it within their budget to do that. And again, I mean, we've got labor within our department that can lay the floor, so that's just the cost of materials.
Okay,
Yeah, I think by the time we're all said and done, we'll probably be into it for probably not much more than $5,000. We're gonna rework some of the grid ceiling that's in there, probably add a couple lights, and then the paint and doing that work. There's a substantial budget that will be remaining after this work is done for future, whatever that ends up being. We're also moving a full-size pool table out of the basement of Brown Gym up to the senior center. They currently have one that's cut down for ADA, and we've reached out to a few places, but the VFW is interested in it, so we're gonna have a pool table moving company come from Louisville, move both tables and donate the small one to the VFW, so they'll have a pool table for folks in wheelchairs up there. So we're excited about that. We'll refurbish our pool table a little bit, but again, I can't say enough about Tanya's effort with the seniors. It's been a world of difference over there. There's excitement, there's energy, and we think it's gonna be a really dynamic center. It's gonna change dramatically from 6 months ago. So I think everybody involved over there is very, very excited. It's long overdue.
One of them cried tears of joy, I mean, just when she saw that, because they have been pretty much ignored for a while, and just to see someone putting an effort in to schedule activities for them and to help with the space, they're very ecstatic.
excellent. Thank
Good.
you, Tanya. Did you have a comment, Phil? or anything?
No.
Okay. All right, so.
Hold on a second. Did we take, was this what Miss Beatrice had concerns about, Scott, with the quilt and all that? Did we take care of that? Okay.
Yeah.
The mural on the back will not be touched. I mean, we're really just repainting the front half. The mural won't be touched
The
in the
quilt's
back, and
down
we would not.
already.
The
It's-
quilt
yeah.
is rolled up safely, ready to rehang
Okay,
once
good.
painting is done. We did,
Yeah.
for sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Scott, you're up for the director's report.
Thank you. First item we'll go over again are basically overall budgets, Parks General and Park NRO. We are still having some issues with negatives as far as things being accounted for in the right categories. So we will persevere to get those corrected and moved. Some of the issues are we don't have the same categories in the NRO schedule as we do in general. We've had a lot of conversations about this coming fiscal year and changing the NRO structure to match the general. And so what we will do, we had a conversation about this on Monday, these two reports will look exactly the same. They will have all the same exact account numbers and definitions. And so if we're doing repairs at Sunrise or Crystal, they will be in the NRO and not in the general, because right now they get captured in the general. We will also identify parks with either a prefix or a suffix of a 3-digit number. So as we budgeted, we will budget by park, we will account by park, and that will all roll up into the appropriate general or NRO. So at any given time, you can say, how we doing at Rucker? We can tell you what we spent on every bit for Rucker, including electricity, water, what we've made in revenue, and here's our bottom line, here's our balance sheet for Rucker, and this is how we're doing out there. And so we'll be able to do that with every park. It helps us identify where we have problems, where things are more expensive than they should be, and how we can focus on problem areas and get those up to speed. So it's an unfortunate we have to still kind of deal with the numbers game. I think as we get closer to the end of the year, we will take care of that and get things moved around where we need to. But next year, you'll see a whole different set of reports, and then we'll have as much detail as you want. We will literally track every invoice that comes in, put it in the appropriate park category before it gets processed. We want to do the same thing with revenue. Revenue should come through me first and before it gets put in a revenue fund, so I can make sure it's going in the right revenue fund. And so we're tracking income as well as the expense part of it. Right now, a check can come in and accounting puts it somewhere and we never see it. So we want to make sure that at least I get to see it and make sure it's going in the right spot. Whether it's sponsorships or whether it's a rebate on chemicals, whatever that number is, I want to make sure that it's going in the right spot so we can offset expenses as we need to. Does anybody have any questions about any of the detail in these reports or any numbers that you have a little bit anxiety over?
Just the lots of zeros on page 2, but obviously you're not worried about it, so I'm not gonna worry about it. You know, just a lot of zero, there's nothing left, there's nothing left. But some of those started at 0, so
Right.
that's why I'm trying to match up
Yeah,
right now.
right now, if you look at the NRO, we're about 48% remaining in budget for the year, and we're
Okay.
more than halfway. And the big issue we have in general is that we have the park unappropriated line item of 239,000, which is from Reedy as they're moving things. So that's not a real negative, that's a placeholder for them before they put it someplace else.
Okay,
So that kind of throws that number way off as well.
thank you.
Yeah, and so those are the two big things to take home from that.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay,
Campground operations report, we have an attachment here. I wish I had seen that hash marks on that first page before I printed these. I think the important thing for us to look at right now is to really kind of look at the bottom right quadrant of the page, year-to-date variance and year-to-date reservations. 'Cause I think that kind of tells us really where we are from this year to last year. Our expenses are down considerably. Now, last year, there was a lot of money put into paving and other things, so that's really not a normal number.
right.
It helps our numbers this year look fantastic, which I'll take. So that really isn't kind of a normal type of year. So we're up a little bit in revenue, do the math, about 121 last year, 126 this year. Of course, our expenses are way down compared to last year. And so our net revenue this year is 114,000 so far, year to date. The interesting thing is, if you look down at our reservations from 2022 to 2023, they're almost exactly the same. There's not much difference there. Doug and I were talking before the meeting, and we've seen a significant drop off these last few weeks. So we need to look at advertising and some other things to kind of push us through to the end of the year, make sure we're getting some more response. And so we'll look at that here this coming week. I think we ran radio ads for, I think it was 8 weeks, but I think those ended August 1st. And so with the opportunity to run those again, so we probably will. I think they're $80 for 2 months, so it's not a substantial amount of money. At least get some airplay and get some noticed outside of our area to hopefully bring people in.
Well, it sounds like our rate change didn't really affect anything.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. When we were going over the rate changes last year, we were worried about, they wanted to raise both, Riverview and so we kind of fought for not raising the roadside. And so we're happy to see that it did not affect,
Yeah,
the overall numbers.
yeah. I think at this point, and Doug would agree with this, that we're kind of at the tipping point right now that without making improvements, we really shouldn't be raising rates anymore because they're not getting any more value
Right.
for the cost. So once we figure out what phase 2 of the campground is and figure out when we're gonna do that, that will be the time we can make adjustments. But until then, I think we just have to hold steady and do some more advertising and try and get the word out and be a little bit more proactive on that end.
Golf course, moving right along.
Moving right along, so I tried to talk about financials first with the golf course. I tried to make it a little bit easier to read. So the front page is year-to-date. The front page is current month and year-to-date, and then the back page is year-to-year. So you can kind of see an analysis of where we are. So I go to the where do I want to send you? I guess we can go to the second page and look at, you can see the monthly revenue and expenses across the top. And then the boxes below that are year-to-date this year versus last year. And then the comparison between the two. So this year revenue is $355,000 and change to date, up against $312 from last year. Our expenses are $293, down from $296.5 last year. So far to date, our net revenue is $62,000 compared to $15,800 last year. And then our net revenue is up 12% and our net expenses are down a little over 1%. So year to date, we're about 75% above last year's revenue, net. All of our key indicators, our cart fees, green fees, and food and beverage fees are all up, which is good. I'm doing a fairly comprehensive review of food and beverage right now. I'm probably 80% done with that. To be perfectly honest, I don't like what I see. We're not in the percentage brackets that we should be at for an industry, and I know how to fix it. That's the good news. We just have to start making some adjustments in how we do things, and it's an education thing more than anything else, understanding of what we should be looking at and how we should be doing it. So I'm going to start embarking on that here in the next couple weeks, try and turn this around by the end of the year. Right now, we're running, I would say on average, about 50% for food costs, where we should be about 30%. So for every dollar we take in, we're spending 50 cents on food cost, where we should be spending 30 cents. So that number's a kilter. Our labor number seems to be okay. We're at about 35%, which is right. I'd like to be at 30, but we're at 35, so that's not horrible. But the food piece of it is off. And so we can address that fairly easily. I'm also looking at beverage expenses, like beer and soft drink expenses, and they're not where we should be either. So those are fairly adjustment, basically in pricing and how we adjust those prices. And so as we go through, that'll be another point of conversation to talk about for next year when we're looking at rates and fees and what we should be charging. I think probably next month at next board meeting, we'll talk about the golf board, and then we'll talk about it here about, I think, where we should be. I'm drilling down into basically every menu item that we do and evaluating the cost and what we charge for it. So I'm 70% done with that. And even how we buy a lot of things from Kroger. We pay retail for a lot of things, and that's a big problem. So trying to figure out storage and how we adjust that. And I spent a lot of time on a golf course the last 2 or 3 days just looking at the facility and how we can make some adjustments and fix that. So that'll be the next kind of project you'll see next month as we try and fix the revenue and the expense side of that part
That's
of it.
different than your predecessor who didn't want to pay for freezer, so,
Right.
it's
We've-
a little different.
We've got an empty freezer at Brown Gym and an empty one at the senior center.
What we have an upright freezer and we have a small chest freezer down there, both of which are packed. And so essentially the problem is portion control. We have no way of knowing that we're putting out the right portion with every single thing that we do. So let's say we have cheese sticks. We're giving them 3 cheese sticks and we're charging $4. So it's cheese sticks, it's marinara, it's the paper, whatever it is. That's costing us $1.79 or $1.80 to produce it, and we're charging $4 for it. So first of all, the presentation's horrible. 3 cheese sticks is nothing. So I mean, it's just all of that together. We just got to do a better way of doing that. And so, we should be, when we get a bag of onion rings, we should pre-portion those. So you just grab a bag of pre-portion, and you don't grab what you think you need to do and throw them in the fryer. Same thing with sandwich meats. They should all be pre-portioned for that sandwich and not, that looks about right. So all those details add up to whether a restaurant or a food service operation makes money or loses money. It's all fixable, but it's a detail.
Why are the expenses, because I'm clueless about this, so much more in July?
Every year in October, we pre-purchase all of our fertilizers and our pesticides. And then by doing that in the fall, we get a 10% rebate, but the bill comes due in July.
Oh, okay.
And so what we've talked about from an accounting standpoint, it makes much more sense for us to bill that as an accrual. So we bill it across 8 months instead of 1 month, which gives us a really better idea of the day-to-day, month-to-month operation of the golf course and what it truly costs us versus it costs us $80,000 in, July because of the pesticides. We're changing that program. We're meeting with another supplier, but more importantly than that, I've reached out to 5 individuals in the golf course industry. One is a very good friend of mine at Cornell. He's going to come down next year sometime. He is probably the head guy in turf grass in the country. And he's got 4 colleagues he works with out of Purdue, Dr. Aaron Patton, Dr. Cale Bigelow, Dr. Doug Richmond, and Dr. Lee Miller. I've reached out to those 4 gentlemen and asked them to come down to the golf course, go on the golf course and look around, kick rocks, dig things up, tell us what we need to do, how do we need to improve it, how do we lower our pesticide use, how do we lower our fertilizer use. So far, Dr. Patton has scheduled a time and date to come down. He'll be down Wednesday, September 27th, and I'm waiting. I haven't heard back from the other 3. I don't think they're back in school yet. So they're all PhDs from Purdue, all in their turf grass. Dr. Patton is their agronomy turf grass guy, Dr. Bigelow deals with water and fertilizer and soil. Dr. Richmond deals with insects, and Dr. Miller deals with diseases. And so by having them come down and evaluate our course and give us recommendations on how to proceed in taking care of it, reducing chemicals, reducing water, reducing fertilizers, reducing pesticides, that'll save us quite a bit of money in that category as well, make it a healthier golf course. So all that is in process right now, but we have at least one confirmation for the 27th of September. So I'm really looking forward to that.
All right, master planning, what you got?
I presented to the golf board last week, I guess, was maybe 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
We engaged a golf course architect out of Holly Springs, North Carolina, Brian Lucier, who used to work for Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player, and asked him to take a look at our course with the hope of adding a practice area and driving range and amongst a few other improvements such as new greens, new irrigation system. So basically trying to get the golf course back to a modern golf course. He presented us with two formal conceptual routings, and they are A and B, which show the existing golf course, hand-drawn, proposed area for driving ranges, and practice areas. And C, we kind of threw out this idea, is like, I wonder if we could fit 18 holes of golf in the northern part of the golf course and turn the southern little 4 holes into like a par 3 course. Way to get extra revenue, would it work? Long story short, that concept shortened the golf course way too much from what we think is practical and ideal. So we pretty much threw that away pretty quickly. The golf board really liked concept A. I'm more of a concept B kind of guy. But I think either way, either one of these scenarios will greatly improve the play on the golf course and the aesthetics of the golf course. So there's a lot of ideas in here as well, moving the superintendent's buildings to a different location so they're not right at our front door. And how do we accommodate different uses, add some water to it for interest. Again, going to USGA greens instead of the mixed greens we have now, which are problematic. Anything we do, we'll have to redo the irrigation system, which we've already had conversations about. And so this is really the beginning part of this conversation as to what the future of Sunrise could look like. I think I know everybody in the golf board is extremely excited about it. And we're looking forward to the next phases of the plans as we gone out for funding to see if we can get some master planning money for this, which I'll talk about later in the update.
Well, I don't know, maybe we should wait for the update. Now, I do know there's, after asking around after, you proposed this to us, it seems very expensive. I know we got the bonds, so there's definitely cost concerns, and
Yeah.
Selling it to the public, it's gonna be difficult, especially if we have to close play.
Yeah.
So I don't know, whenever this is going on, if it'd be possible to keep part of the course open or anything like that, right? How much it's gonna cost? Can we ensure that we can get that bond back, So those will be difficult sales,
They will be, but I think I think the bottom line is the bottom line. At this point in time, we're struggling to be $60,000 ahead in August. And that's the most we've been ahead in how many years? And if we don't change what we're doing, we will never change that bottom line number. We will struggle every year. We will try and figure out how to get equipment. We will have to spend money on irrigation at some point, because that irrigation system is trashed. And so we can stay as we are and struggle and figure it out and fight and scrap every year, or we can move it to the next generation of the next 50 years. And so those are the conversations. They're not going to be easy conversations. You know, it's no different than saying Rucker. Well, Rutgers is fine. You know, it's been around for 30 years. We're fine. Well, depends on who you ask.
Right.
You know, there are more opportunities for revenue at Sunrise than we're capturing right now. We don't have any college play at Sunrise where we could capture that just by lengthening the course, just a few hundred yards, getting more interest in that. I mean, there's different groups that we can generate more income from to help offset these expenses. And I think, you know, we always have to keep in mind that this is a municipal course, it's a city course, and we have citizens who should play there and should not cost an arm or a leg to play. And that has to be a consideration. And so that's, you know, you look at tiered pricing. So, I mean, we haven't run any financial models. We don't even know where we're going to be yet.
Right. We have to wait for the professionals to come in and really
Yeah,
tell us, so.
yeah, and all that work has to get done, but this is, we won't know that number until we do this. And
Right.
so at least we've started that process. And it may be at the end of the day that we come back and say, you know what? We'll spend some money and fix the irrigation and do a couple things, and that's what we'll do. I think the driving range would be a huge benefit and a huge asset to the city. I think it would be a fun thing at nighttime for a lot of people who can't play during the day. It's an opportunity for revenue, but I think it's just an event thing. You know, if you think about Top Golf, but not Top Golf, you know, I think it's a good nighttime activity thing, especially
If you
in the
do it right,
summertime.
right, if you do it
You
right.
know, I think if we do it right, then it becomes a place to go.
On this A model that the golf board liked, does that include extending the course like more into the woods? Like, are we developing new
Yeah.
areas?
This is into the woods right here.
Okay,
Yeah.
number 12.
Yeah, and I think number 4, we have an opportunity, I think, with the green to go back down farther behind number 5T. That area is pretty flat down through there. So I think there's opportunities, because the architect hasn't been out here yet, and he hasn't gotten the true topo yet. He can't really, right now, everything in him is a flat plane. So he can't really truly get down to the nitty gritty until he gets the topo. So I think there's a lot of, just driving on the golf course, there's a lot of opportunity to put another set of tees further back and capture a lot more yardage, really with doing very little. I think that's easy right now. But adding some topographical and geographical features help entice people to play. I think just moving some greens and making some shot making, make it a little bit more difficult, I think is always fun, unless you're just trying to go out there and shoot your same score every week. All those things generate interest and generate more people coming to the golf course.
And I would just like to reiterate what Jake said too, that I do have big concerns about closing it down and the costs and all that. So, I mean, in theory, it's amazing to look at it, but I have lots of reservations that we can hash out as we proceed
Yep,
in the process.
yep. Yes.
The next step is just getting the guy in, see what he says.
Okay, so let's move on to summer and fall programming registration.
Yes. So I thought I'd give everybody an update as to pretty much where we are from our programming, from an income and from an expense standpoint, just to kind of keep grading ourselves to make sure that we're not going too crazy. So the first page talks about what I call available entries. And that is how many, the limit of the number of reservations that we had for each program. And that's based on many things, what you're doing or how many teams, all kinds of different aspects. You know, for water aerobics, it was 34 because we were in a pool that had a deep end and we didn't know how far we could go with people in the water. So we had 991 available entries. And that does not include youth flag football or youth volleyball because we don't have limits on those right now. So this is spring, summer, and into fall. 991 available entries. We had 818 participate. for just under 83% participation rate. We had 4 people waitlisted for swim lessons, and our revenue from the classes and some sponsorships right now is $28,200 to date. The second page talks about the expenses we've incurred for those programs. So from T-ball uniforms to food and beverage to paying lifeguards and swim instructors, concessions, cheer uniforms, we're at $20,643 right now. The big issue we've got right now is football. So we sent out 120 football helmets to be tested. So your football helmets have to be impact tested every 2 years. They also cannot be any older than 10 years. At 10 years, they age out and you can no longer use them. We sent out 120 helmets. We got back 41. So 79 of our helmets either failed impact testing or aged out. So that put us in a pretty big bind. So we've got 41 helmets. We had the ability to procure 15 helmets quickly, which I did. And then, so right now we're at about 57 helmets. And we're going to get a couple more off sizes. So we'll have 60 helmets, which will be for 2 teams. So 3rd and 4th grade and 5th and 6th grade. So we had to go and buy those helmets. And we've got a spreadsheet. We'll be able to track our aging now, so we know. And then we'll also be able to track our testing, so we're making sure that we're testing regularly and not all at once, that we're splitting them up as we need to. When we went down to clean out Brown Gym, we found out there was no jerseys, no football jerseys down there. There's some, but they're all mixed different. They're all different kinds. There's about 10 or 12 of them. So we had no jerseys. So we had to order football jerseys for this year as well. So we've got those ordered. So that number's coming in as well. So I don't have the price for testing yet. I was lucky to get them tested. The 3 companies that are within geographical region of our space were all booked out. Riddell got them done for us out of Indy. So I'm waiting for that invoice to come in. So with football, again, everything was like catch up from last year, last minute kind of stuff. So that, we got it done. We're good to go, but that's an expense we don't have yet. So that's where we are with.
Do we
summer and
know,
fall.
in general, why there were no jerseys?
I don't.
Just not collected, or?
I don't think they were collected last year. So what we did this year is we did part of our sizing on Monday. And so we had a spreadsheet, and we had labeled every one of our pieces that we handled out, serial numbers or a number. We put the price next to it, made the parents sign it, that they don't bring it back. This is what should be charged for the missing items. And so we have documentation of who has what sizes, and then they will bring them back to us the same way they sized, and they will turn them in. And then we'll say, okay, everything received. When we did the sizing on Monday, Whitney said that they had 30 helmets come back in from people who had them from last year. They brought them in with them. So those 30 helmets have not been impact tested, and they had not been checked for age. So we can't use those. So, but nobody knew people had them. One lady brought it in, she borrowed it for a Halloween costume and brought it back in Monday. So, again, it's record keeping, it's just being structured and having a system that when these things go out the door, we know where they are and who's got them. And when they come back in, we know who hasn't brought them in, and we can charge them accordingly. So we're addressing that from a system standpoint right now.
And so for the fall, our main 2 activities that we're offering are the football, both flag and tackle,
Yep.
and then volleyball. Is that it?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
We met with Gary Van Wy this morning and talked about his league quite a bit, his leagues, kind of understanding our role and what we will do, which has been kind of historical. And I don't want to recreate the wheel, and I don't think there's enough capacity in Madison and the surrounding area to run 2 separate leagues. I don't think we'd ever do well with that. And so we've promised him the use of Brown Gym. We've agreed on a price per game that he will pay us. We will run concessions. He will hire everybody he needs to hire, referees and ticket takers and scorekeepers and all that. He will take care of all that. He wants to do a tournament the third week in September at Brown Gym, where we will get a third of the gate, as well as basically a third of all the revenue that comes in after expenses for a 2-day tournament. And so again, we'll run concessions for that as well. So we have an understanding of how Gary runs his league, and we had conversations a couple weeks ago with the Boys and Girls Clubs about the same thing, and we've all agreed that there's things that we don't need to jump in the middle of and create issues when things go well. We don't need to do everything. And so Gary runs his league. He's got somebody, Gary's getting older, he's got somebody who works with him that will probably take over his league once he decides to retire. And so we will continue to work with that person as well. Essentially, he runs a travel league for basketball, and we would be putting a rec team into a travel league scenario, which would not do well for us. We still have signups going on, but we only have a couple people signed up. So I think and it may get better, but we'll have to have that conversation as we get closer, whether we want to put a team in. I'd like to, but I want them to be competitive, and I want them to have fun, and if they're going out there and getting trounced because they're dealing with a hand-picked team, that's problematic.
Now, my son plays in basically the Madison travel, third grade team. They're all organized school teams.
Yep. Which is all great. I mean, the bottom line is we want them out there doing things, and we just want to understand what our role is. Conversations we have with the Boys and Girls Club, same thing. There's things that they do well and that they should do well, and that we shouldn't step on their toes and get in the middle of it. There's things that we do that we can help them with, and we're talking a lot about cross-promotion and help each other out. And we've had quite a few conversations with a lot of different groups about that as well. So trying to find our place, what we do well and what we can support. I believe it's our mission to have openings for kids who can't afford to do things, more openings for adults, but let those groups that do things really well continue to do things really well, and we support them and we help them any way we can. And then the things we do well, we take command of, like baseball.
Okay, we're ready for our update on the Lions Club Park.
Lions Club had a company come out and basically refreshed Lions Club playground, took off some broken plastic canopies and replaced some broken and rotted wood, pressure washed it, sealed and stained it, so now it's safe and refreshed and looks pretty good. It'll be in good shape for the next couple, 2 or 3 years until we figure out what's going to happen up in that neck of the woods. So we're excited to get that back and functional again for folks on the hilltop. Again, that was stellar community money, and there's still some money left over if we need to do anything else up there.
All right, Crystal Beach, do we have our live camera up now that people can check on?
Yes, the live
Progress?
camera's up. You can, it's on our website. There's a link to it. You can pull it up and take a look at it. They've been working foundation-wise around the building for the stairwell and for closing off that lower entry. So that's done. They've been digging in the deep end and have gotten a lot of work done towards that section where the diving area is. So that seems to be the deepest area, and they're working their way out. So they're making good progress. I know the rain was giving them some fits in July, but I think they've kind of gotten past that right now. I am looking at interior fit out as well as fit out for the concession stand, as well as furniture for the pool deck, which has not been in the budget or purchased. So I'm working through the inventory for those and all what we need to get to make it functional for next year, including point-of-sale systems and office furniture, lockers for the lifeguard locker room, and those kinds of things. So there's a lot going on with Crystal Beach, even though you don't see much out there lot of dump trucks coming in and out.
Okay. Brown Jim,
Let me go back to Gaines Park,
Oh,
we skipped
sorry.
that.
I
I
should've-
believe next week we will be seeing the playground furniture going in at Gaines Park. I'm pretty sure it was scheduled for the 17th, for them to start. We have everything here, they just need to install it. We're putting in a drinking fountain there, so we've added a water service. We're waiting for the extra, we have one basketball goal up now, we're waiting for the second one to come in, and get that installed. So we're in good shape. Based upon what they did at Oak Hill, it's probably take less than a couple weeks to get all that equipment installed. So we should be looking good for the end of the month.
have we started painting the basketball court in the school colors or anything yet?
No, we were going to wait for Crystal Beach, but because we haven't received those backboards yet, we don't quite know the distances. So we'll go back up, we'll paint Gaines now, and then we'll come back and paint Crystal Beach once we get that finalized. I think there's been a little controversy about what
Yeah.
colors, and I don't know what what that's been resolved as, but, that's in somebody else's bailiwick to worry about at this point.
And are we still looking at a Labor Day weekend, like dedication or opening? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Brown Jim,
Brown Gym repair, we had, the ceiling demolished so we could understand what was happening from a structure standpoint. I had the structural engineer come out about 3 weeks ago. He was on vacation last week, so he didn't do any work, so he started working this week on preparing plans and specifications for the repair. Once we get those, we'll send them out to bid for 3 or 4 companies to give us pricing to come in and fix it. I think hopefully we'll have it repaired by the end of October, which should be fine for basketball. So, looks like to me that we have one that may have had some termite damage, but pretty much it's all moisture damage on the outside. Wooden floor joist sitting on brick, water got in, the ends rotted off, and they dropped. And so, it should be a fairly easy fix. The biggest issue we have is we got a lot of conduit on that ceiling. So working around existing infrastructure and making things fit in there will be a little bit of an issue, but it's really gonna be about cutting lumber and putting new lumber up. So it's not that complicated of a repair.
okay. Hunter Hall,
Last month, we had a discussion about high volume events and whether or not we should look at pricing for Hunter Hall. For those weekends, typically campground and other places, we have high volume, big event pricing that is different. We talked last month that we would have a conversation, so I just want to put this on the agenda to keep that in everybody's mind on whether we want to leave things just the way they are or whether we want to do something differently for heavy traffic events.
Are those rates on that rate sheet?
They're not, because it wouldn't have been open last year. So it's $600 for a full day, and it's $400 for a half a day, is what our current rate is.
The other question we've been getting a lot is from nonprofits wanting to use the space for a discounted rate, and we hadn't put that in the policy. You guys want to do anything about discounts for? We
Yeah,
probably had.
any 501 corporation that is a not-for-profit. That's in the big packet up front that we first started talking about. That's in there as a consideration, not just
Yeah.
for Hunter Hall, but anywhere. Brown Gym or anywhere that we rent space, is that a consideration for nonprofits? So again, I want to have a formal layering of this is what we charge and to who we charge it, and not just, oh yeah, your group we can do it, but your group we can't.
Is there a template? Is there other municipalities that we can maybe,
I think everyone's gonna be different.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at Hunter Hall as, that's, you got a bond to pay back. That's an expense that doesn't change. We have other options, people want it because it's new, when they've used other facilities for a long time, and we're fine with that until they got something new. But again, that's your call on how you wanna address that.
How has the scheduling gone with these prices currently? And I know it's still new, but how has it been with bookings?
It's getting busier. Yeah, I'm
Steady.
surprised, yeah, yeah. I know anecdotally, there was somebody who had an event at Red Bicycle and they got shut down for whatever reason. I think it was a wedding reception, and so we had Hunter Hall, and boom, they could jump right in. So that normally wouldn't have happened. They would have had a hard time. So we're seeing more and more events like that pop up. So more and more interest. I think every week we're getting a call about something. Yeah.
So in the month of July, how many times was it used? Do you have an idea?
July,
Yeah,
Since we first started
yeah.
renting it, probably had,
three
I was gonna say
times.
3.
Besides our own. We really haven't promoted it a whole lot. Just today, the security system guys put in the keyless entry pad. So we've been waiting till some things were finished up before we start promoting and
So let me explain
there
that.
were some other things.
It goes back to, again, the very first document I gave you. We have a tendency that if we have an event, that we end up sending somebody out to unlock a door, which ends up being overtime, which means we pay them for 2 hours to unlock a door and then go back later to lock it back up again. That adds up to real money. And so what we've done is we've engaged a keyless system that we can operate from our phone, and we can unlock it ourselves or give somebody a code that will be used only for a period of time for access. And they can come and go as they need to, and we have control over it. And once their time is up, that code goes away and you can't come back in. And so it eliminates all that overtime and that manpower of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We have the same issue at Brown Gym. So we're trying to get away from all these little nickel and dimes that are not nickels and dimes. They add up to real money very, very fast. I can guarantee you that we will save this, that costs us $4,000. We will save $4,000 in a year by doing this, easily.
I recently stayed at the Chandler. They've got the code entry. That was pretty nice,
It's
actually.
nice. You don't have to worry about it. You just go and do your thing and you're in and you're good to go. Yep.
Now, there are a couple things in our packet here, updates that are not on your list, like John Paul Park, the Senior Center. Is that just for us to kind of look over, but not really talk about?
That was a grant application is what she's looking at.
Yeah, so
Oh, okay.
under general updates, I have a Bethany Legacy Foundation grant submittal. And so what I did is I gave you a copy of the narrative of the submittal.
Okay.
And I went to, submitted this to Bethany Legacy Foundation probably about a month ago now, and identified a bunch of items that are capital needs that right now are not budgeted, and wanted to gauge your interest in helping us fund these. And so you'll see a whole bunch of these items that, quite frankly, if they don't get approved, we'll have to go through the capital budgeting process and identify what the priorities are to get these repairs done. And so that's what this packet is. It's the packet I submitted to them. Their grant committee meets on the 15th, so next week they meet. And then they will make recommendations to their board, which meets in the first week in September. So we'll know in the first week in September how successful we were on this application. Another thing that's really, really important is we received a grant from Bethany for 12 AEDs that were delivered on Monday. And so we will be installing these in locations now that don't currently have them. So just an example, the senior center doesn't have one. We don't have anything permanently mounted at Rucker anywhere. We don't have anything at Bicentennial Park. So there's numerous places where there's high activities. We don't have one at the campground. So there's numerous areas that we don't have these. Hopefully we'll never use them, but we received 12 of them. We're also getting 6 outdoor cabinets, which means they can be held permanently outside and out of the weather. So these are AEDs that will be for us to use as we see fit. So we've already identified 11 places. We're going to give Whitney one to carry with her. We're going to give Bobo one to carry with him. We'll give one for the golf course superintendent and one for the golf course pro shop. So they each have theirs. If they're ever on the course and need them, they have them. These areas that have high traffic and not much protection, we will use those AEDs for those locations. So I'm very, very thankful to Bethany Legacy Foundation for that grant. That was awesome.
We are all very thankful for the Bethany
We
Foundation.
are. We are, very, very much so. So that was that piece, and then the very last piece of paper that I have is what I'm calling proposed organizational chart for Parks and Rec. Some of this looks familiar, some of it is new. As I've been here for a while now and looking at the structure and how I think this department needs to move forward as we upgrade and improve our facilities, it doesn't come without a personnel cost. And so, you know, right now, if we look at, just say, athletic programs, we have one person running athletic programs. And it's Whitney's job to help get things signed up, get people registered, run the program, hire concession workers, make sure the concessions are stocked, making sure the football coaches have what they need, getting the schedules done for T-ball. That's just a little bit of it. And that's a lot for one person to do. I think before you had a person overseeing it, and there was 2 or 3 people that worked for them to kind of manage all that. And so I've done that to some extent on this as well. We'll have to hire a program manager for Crystal Beach, somebody who's down there the whole time it's open, an assistant manager, and then of course the numerous lifeguards and concession people and all that's going to take to run that. Now, right now it's kind of a shot in the dark. I've never run Crystal Beach when it was open, so we have to make sure we're somewhat covered. This has all been budgeted for this coming year as part of our seasonal help for our Crystal Beach NRO. I also envision right now we have staffing that is paid for by the Parks Department, but is managed by the Streets Department. And that was done out of necessity from previous years for various reasons. That's not how that should function. So Parks Department should have our own people who I manage and does the work of the Parks Department. Now that work would include anything from mowing to setting up athletic fields, to fixing shelters, to repairing playgrounds, to doing whatever we need to do in parks-related facilities to keep them updated. Right now, we're spread too thin, and we have people getting pulled for, you know, you can't mow today, you need to help us set up for Riverfest. I can't have that. We have to be purposeful in maintaining our parks with people who know our parks and take care of them all the time. And so the idea is that we have a little bit more of an oversight structure. We have a manager who manages the day-to-day activities of the workers, and then we have our hourly people who do the work. And so a couple people at Rucker making sure the ball fields and athletic fields, and that would include John Paul and everything else, are taken care of. Other people who help maintain and mow and do whatever we need to have done. And so I'm looking at this as how do we structure each one of these to make sure that we have proper coverage and we're taking care of these parks that we're spending money on. That if we don't take care of in 5 years, it will just be wasted money.
And Scott, I'd like to jump in there. I understand we were stretched thin there, but I think getting back to what you just said about people at the parks and the fields, that needs to go, because we've seen a decline in the fields all over town.
Yeah.
But especially at Rucker.
Yeah.
Because we're pulling people from everywhere else to do
Right,
it. And
right.
I've had conversation with Bobo about it too. It's
Yeah.
just, that's why there's been a decline.
Right.
Not to say anything on those guys, they're getting pulled every which way. They have too much on their plate. But we need to get back to the way it used to be, to where.
Absolutely. I haven't found really anybody who's been more dedicated and proud of what he does than Bobo. And he works hard up there. He takes great pride in getting those fields as best as he can. And he gets incredibly frustrated with some of what he's had to deal with the back and forth, because he feels it's a reflection on him if things aren't the way they should be. Those fields all need a lot of work, and it's not going to be cheap to do that. And you don't want to go spend the money to fix them and then in 5 years, we're right back here where we
Let 'em
are
run
again.
down.
You just can't do that. And so the only way we do that is to have the Director of Parks and Recreation manage the parks. And that includes personnel, it includes maintenance, it includes repairs, it includes day-to-day activities on how all that functions. And so it's really straightforward. We've been trying to deal with some lights out at Field 4 since I got here. And it's constant, the people who are supposed to do it get pulled away, get pulled away, get pulled away. And so it creates a problem. We have people playing on those fields and they're not as well lit as they should be, but it's just trying to get our arms around it is difficult. And so, and I've had conversations with the mayor and conversations with Mindy about this direction, and everybody seems to agree and understand that yes, this is probably the way we need to go. I don't take lightly the expense of personnel, and so that's always taken into consideration. But you know, how much is it going to cost us to renovate Rucker? $4 or $5 million to get it right, versus putting people in the right spot and maintaining it correctly. So it's always a give and take to that.
So I see 3 positions in this flow chart here that currently aren't filled.
Mhm.
So it would be your desire in a perfect world to have a Brown Gym manager,
Mhm.
a golf course operations manager, and an assistant athletic and parks manager.
Correct. Correct. We're having some issues at the golf course with Roger trying to be all up there. And so he's running his pro shop and the golf course operations while he's also trying to run food service and beverage. And that doesn't work well. And so we need to have somebody who's managing the city side of the business, and Roger can manage the Roger side of the business. And so right now, Roger's managing both of them. He's doing a good job, but it's a lot for him to be spread like that. And so if we want to get serious about our revenue and our income, then we have to have the right people in the right spot.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions, concerns, comments?
No.
Okay. Is there anybody here who would like to approach the podium to speak from the public? Okay. Our next meeting is Tuesday, September 5th at 5 o'clock, our regular meeting time. Can I please get a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Thank you very much.